the time and space to give yourself a break. Here you'll find some love, music, laughter, and above all, she'll dare to tell the truth. And so come to Granny's place and give your spirit a big boost.
Welcome to Granny's Place, a haven for love, entertainment, and uncommon sense. I'm Sweet Baby James, and I'm here to introduce you to Granny Rocks and to tonight's theme, which is, How Can I Help You? This is back due to popular demand because there have been so many inquiries and welcoming inquiries as to how can Granny help you. She's an intuitive counselor, so perhaps she can be of help. So take it away, Granny.
Welcome to Granny's Place. I may start coughing and sneezing. It's always allergy time. I don't know. Have you noticed that? Whatever the season, if you have allergies, there's something you're allergic to.
An allergy for all seasons.
That's right. So the situation today is that we've got 6 questions, so I'm going to speed answer to the best of my ability. I want to get them all in. And I don't have any more questions, so I didn't want to spill any over to the next time because maybe you'll be sending me more questions this week, or maybe we won't have enough and I'll do a topic next Wednesday. But in the meantime, let me do the best that I can with your questions for today.
Great.
And please do not send a question that refers to somebody else's question that was 4 weeks ago. So I had to remove questions that nobody would really understand what you're talking about. So if you want to send me a question, make sure the whole thing is in there so people are actually know what you're talking about. All right.
Great.
Take it away, Sweet Baby James.
Okay, then. This first question. Hi, Granny. My name is Simone. And as I watch and hear and feel our country get more angry, more afraid, more reactive, and more separated, I struggle daily to not become one of the angry, reactive, afraid, and separated people. I'm not looking to bash our leaders. I'm looking to stay grounded, kind, and even optimistic. Any words of wisdom? Thank you.
Well, here's what I have to say about that. First of all, these are angry times, but, there's been a lot of angry times. I mean, people are angry a lot and have been angry a lot, but what I think we would say is that we have permission to be vile and awful to one another, which is just bringing that anger to the surface, and then, of course, as you're referring to, it feeds that anger. Now, if you're talking about the political arena, it's kind of like Facebook. Facebook, nobody knows who you are, so you can say anything you darn want, and you can hide behind your anonymity, and you don't have to look at the face of the person that you're abusing. Isn't that true?
That is so true.
I mean, people just often put vile things on talking about vile times. Okay. But now, the political arena is the same. Get them out! Do this! Lynch them is the essential message. And that's why, because you're not looking at the people you're doing this to. One of the interesting things about the whole separation of families at the border is that people came in with pictures and said, this is what it looks like when you take a 2-year-old child away from its mother and send it into oblivion, and now it's coming back and it's traumatized and all that. And then you say, well, that's not what I meant. I didn't mean that. I just meant get rid of all the criminals or those scroungers or whatever it is, right? So what we have here is politics is Facebook on steroids, where we don't actually have to look at the people that we are hurting. You say, okay, we don't want any Muslims from those countries in, and who cares if their families are separated? I don't ever have to look at them, right?
That's right.
So this is the big problem. Now, when I say that's the big problem, that's also a clue as to maybe the solution, but at least the piece for you of not being so desperate that you start to get negative yourself, which is to say, forgive them, oh Lord.
For they know not what they do.
They know not what they do, and we can say that about us. we don't know what we're doing. We're just lashing out. We need someone to blame. We have the blamer in chief as president, And so underneath all of that anger and horrible policies, and there have always been horrible policies. I don't care who was president, we always had the same problem of disconnection, so that we are not looking at the people that are being impacted by our policies. Oh yeah, let's change the food stamps. So now there's something with the food stamps that people can't go to farmers markets because, after all, poor people don't really need to eat fresh fruits and vegetables. Certainly not. So, but we don't even realize the consequences. It's like eating meat, right? You go to the supermarket and you see a wing in a piece of plastic and you're not seeing the suffering of the chicken. I don't even want to go there because I still eat animal protein because I can't seem to exist without it. Horrible. So, but if I was the one who had to go kill that chicken, I would rather die than eat meat. What can I say? So it's like the more that we bring home the reality of what we're doing, the more likely it is that people are going to start saying, well, maybe this isn't really what I meant because I'm not that kind of a gal, right? I'm not the kind of gal who could do that. Now, some people are those kinds of gals and guys, whatever, but you know what I'm saying? So how do we make this real? All the rhetoric in the world, all that's doing is making everybody angry and polarized and defensive, and you voted for somebody who does something terrible and you don't want to admit that it's terrible because that makes you look like you made a mistake, and you certainly could not have made a mistake. And I'm not just talking about the president. It could be the water board. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's everything, right? So if we look into the hearts of the people who are supporting various policies, these are just talking heads out there in the political arena. They aren't really people. They are positions. They are ambitions. Right? They are egos being manifest on the planet as we speak. And so they're not really people. But now, are they really people? Of course they're really people, but underneath all the egos are people. And this guy I would never do that. See, I would never do that, but you're doing it, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
If we look at it that way, then maybe we have a moment where we can say, well, underneath it all, most people are kind, but scared.
Uh-huh.
And they get revved up because they don't know what to do, and they're powerless, and they feel like they have to believe somebody because they feel so desperate about their lives. So what I would like to suggest for you and for me and for all of us to start with is to remember that every mob is made up of individuals, most of which at least actually are caring, are kind. So that's the way to not be in despair to begin with. And then let's come together and try to figure out how we can create a society that is kind and that will support people's kindness and that will help people pass their fear. Don't expect a cornered dog to suddenly have a spiritual awakening. And that's how most of us feel, like cornered dogs. I hope that was enough, but I think
then.
Probably I've shot my wad on that question.
Well, thank you. That was very helpful, I think. Okay. This one's from Anonymous. Hi, Granny. How do you tell the difference between being comfortable with who you are versus being scared to change?
Well, that is a great question. Well, because when we need to change, we are not comfortable. Here, let's say we are in a pair of shoes, right? And the shoe size is 5 because we have delicate little feeties. And then somehow or other, as we get older, our feet size becomes a 7. Well, or even a 5.5 or 5.25. So what do? We have to change shoes. But no, we can't change shoes because yesterday we were comfortable in these shoes. So we keep thinking, what's the matter? Why am I not? And first we don't even notice. It's like it's so gradual. Like, oh, the change is gradual. And we don't even notice that our feet are being pinched. And then one day you wake up and you see your toes are swollen and they're going this way. And then you say, oh my God, I'm not comfortable. So there is the answer. You will know that it's time to change when you're really not comfortable, but you have to be willing to look inside to see whether or not you are really comfortable. Okay.
Wow.
That was a speed answer.
That was good.
How am I doing?
Great.
All right.
Hi, Granny. This is Lulu. My question is, how do I become supportive to people in my life when I feel I don't have anything to say that will help them?
Well, this is one of those questions where the answer is in the question. I love those. So now, if you would read that question again, sweet baby James, what are you noticing? Read that one more time.
Okay, here we go.
You can skip that. This is Lulu. Hi, Lulu. Thank you so much for identifying yourself. Oh, and by the way, thank you, Simone.
How do I feel supportive? Oh, no, how do I become supportive to people in my life when I feel I don't have anything to say that will help them?
See, you're making two assumptions in that question.
Right.
One is that people need you to help them, and the other is that you have to say something.
Right.
Now, maybe what people need sometimes is just a shoulder, right? Maybe sometimes just people need to be heard. But, there's too many people who say that, oh, all you have to do is, listen. Well, no. Sometimes we do need to do more than listen. Sometimes people need a kick in the ass. They don't just need, a tissue that we have to turn into tissues ourselves. So then what's the next thing? Well, all right, it's that you have to say something. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't say something. If you see something, are you saying it? Now, you're assuming also that you have nothing to say. Oh my God, there are so many pieces to this, right? Okay, so we started out with... Okay, that you're not always there to help people in the way that you think. In fact, you may be helping them in a way that is totally different from the way you think you're going to help them. Secondly, you're assuming that in order to help people, you have to say something. And sometimes you don't. Sometimes you just need to look them in the eye and say, is that really true?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Is that really true? Now, what do I mean by that? Oh, my boyfriend, I really love him, but he lacks ambition. And I just don't know, if I can respect a man like that. Well, is it really true that he lacks ambition? What is ambition? Does he lack it? Should anyone have it? Okay, now, those kind of questions, you don't have to have answers. You just have to have simple questions where you help the person reflect. Well, actually, my boyfriend feeds the squirrels in the neighborhood. And he's devoted. No matter the weather, no matter his circumstances, he's out there feeding the squirrels. Well, you say, well, does that sound like a guy with no ambition? Well, no, I don't mean that. I mean that he doesn't want to make a lot of money. He's playing the trombone. Well, is that a lack of ambition, or is that a lack of ambition in a direction that you want him to have ambition? If he has enough ambition to feed the squirrels, then maybe he has ambition. Maybe he has ambition to write the great American novel. Now, I'm not saying you should be with him or that you respect that. But really, it comes back then to, well, what do you value? What does he value? So you see, when you look at that and you ask the person the question of, does he lack ambition? What do you mean by ambition? Ambition for what? You get the person self-reflecting. This is just one example, right? That's how you help people, by helping them to self-reflect. And the final piece about this, because I said, it's getting complicated, is it's not always words. Sometimes you look someone in the eye, or you take their hand, or you give them a hug, and you just say, and what's really bothering you? Mm-hmm. See, most of the time, people have no idea what's bothering them. They're flailing around, guessing, hoping, that they are somehow getting it, whatever is making them uncomfortable. What's the shoe that doesn't fit? But usually they don't have it. Sometimes, if you don't have that awareness yourself, just by being there in their presence, you give them the support to get more honest. Oh my God, the only thing you could do in your whole life to help other people would be to support them to be more honest with themselves, you would be doing a lot more than the people who are going around trying to give everybody advice. So maybe you do have something. And maybe, and this is the fourth point and final in this, because I have to stay on schedule. Maybe you already know something, and you are just afraid to say it. Then you're being a chicken shit. And ask yourself why. Okay.
Okay. Tell it like it is. This one's from Lizzie. Hi, Granny. I have a question about my work setting. There are some support staff that are not doing their jobs thoroughly, which has negative effects on the rest of us, such as new patient information being delayed and taking longer to get on the therapist schedules. Do you have any suggestions on how I could support this situation to bring in more harmony and cohesiveness into the workplace? Thanks.
Well, the first thing I know is that getting snitty about it is not really going to be terribly supportive, because you're asking how you can support the situation. But it seems to me that you're looking at a culture. It sounds like you are on the staff and not in the administration. Is that correct? So, you're not her.
Yeah, but she's part of the staff, evidently.
Right. So you're part of the staff. So what you're really saying is that you're pissed off that your bosses aren't doing anything about it, and they are not making this thing work better. So instead of focusing on the other staff members that you have no power over or control over, seems to me, just judging by the question, that you really want to talk to your admin people and say, this is what I'm experiencing. Is this right? Is this true? And is there anything that you can do or that we can collectively do?
She did refer to them as support staff, so maybe she could also talk to them. Support
well,
staff.
it depends on who these people are. You have a good point. I mean, if this person is your assistant, then you can go to your assistant and say, I'm really struggling here because I needed this yesterday and I'm not getting it until the day after tomorrow, and this is the impact that it's having on me. So that's a very good point, Sweet Baby James. If that person is supporting you directly, then you can actually bring it up and say something, or if there are staff meetings. But it seems to me the first thing is, are you afraid to confront the administration about the culture in the organization, or are you just crabby?
Okay. Very good.
Do I have like 10 minutes?
Yes, you do, as a matter of fact.
And how many questions do I have left?
2.
Perfect.
This next one is
That
from...
was probably not the answer that you were looking for, Lizzie, but
Okay.
I hope it helps.
This one's from Anonymous.
Okay.
How do you know when a problematical pattern of behavior is happening because of something I can change, or if it's just who I am? For example, personality, temperament, etc.
Oh, so this is about you. The problematical behavior is you.
Yeah.
Well, that's, that's one of those serenity prayer things. God, grant me the serenity to accept things I cannot change, the wisdom to know, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Well, I have been praying for the wisdom to know the difference for a very long time. But it seems to me that if this behavior is problematical, you need to do both. Accept it and change it. instead of either or. If you don't accept it, you'll be down on yourself, you'll disempower yourself, you'll make yourself defensive, hide, ashamed. Now that is no way to treat a lady or a guy, right? You have to accept it to start with. It's like, oh, duh. All right, now let's say, you say, okay, I am really kind of addled these days. Well, first you have to accept that you're addled without shame, right? Without judgment. But then you have to say, well, could there be a reason for this? And what could that reason be? Could it be because I get drunk every day? Because I'm not eating the right food? I'm having sugar? Is it because I'm anxious? Is it because I really don't have the brain power for this? See? The only way to really answer that question beyond you need to do both is you have to be able to look at the cause of the problem. Now, if the cause of the problem was something that happened to you when you were 3 days old or, in the womb, that still doesn't mean you can't change it. But once you identify the source, you can say, okay, I can stop drinking. Oh, I can't stop drinking. Well, I could go to AA. That's a first step towards starting drinking. I could admit I'm an alcoholic, and that could be a step towards that. I admit that I'm an anxiety-ridden nutcase, right? And maybe I need medication, and so on and so on and so on. So when we start looking at it, when we start looking deeper into it, we begin to look at what the problem of what the source is. And sometimes we say, okay, I can't change this. I cannot change this. This happened to me when I was 2, and I've been really working on it, and I cannot change it. And I've tried every form of therapy, and now I'm doing yoga, and I'm meditating. And so, okay, well, if you can't change it, try to reduce it. Try to support yourself around it. Oh, for example, I notice that I get stupid every day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, maybe it's nap time. You see what I mean? Maybe you can't change it, but maybe you can ameliorate it. So everything, you see, in your question, didn't you say it was a problematic behavior?
Problematic behavior.
Problematic means it's causing a problem.
Right.
Okay, if it's causing a problem, accept it and then see what you can do about it. And then be willing to accept whatever you can do about it in the time frame that you are working in. Maybe in 5 years you'll have a better grip on it. But no, you never just accept a problematic behavior and say, too bad, so sad. You don't do that, but you don't beat yourself up either. So you see, the duality is in your head between these two things. Acceptance and action are two sides of the same coin, and it would be very awkward to be going around giving out coins that have only one side.
Oh, indeed.
Indeed.
Okay, then. Our final question.
Okay.
This is one I personally have identified with quite a lot with, before having met you, of course. From Anonymous. Many are isolated, alone at home at the end of the workday. How can these individuals maintain a feeling of connectedness in isolation?
I immediately wonder if that describes your life, Anonymous, or you're talking about other people's lives. I mean, wouldn't you like to know? Wouldn't you like to know if Anonymous is experiencing that?
I would suspect Anonymous is experiencing that.
Well, if Anonymous is experiencing it and didn't say so, then that's the first clue to the solution for Anonymous's situation, because Anonymous isn't sharing openly what's going on with him or her. He's not even saying, okay, here's my situation. I'm 46 years old. I'm socially awkward. I live alone, and even my dog has left me. you know. So then I could talk to and I could address your situation specifically and say, well, what can you do? Oh, there must be a dog bereavement group somewhere that you could go to, a place where you...
But is there any general guidance you might be able to give to those of us
well, wait.
who are in that grouping?
Wait,
Okay.
but I'm getting to that.
Okay.
I am getting to that
Okay.
because what I'm saying is by sharing your pain, you are in that moment taking a different action around your isolation. You are un-isolating yourself, even in the way that you ask the question. Now, maybe it isn't you.
Yes.
Maybe you're thinking about somebody else that you see who is isolated. But what was that? Give me the end of that question again. Or
Then the question
the
was...
whole question. Many are isolated.
Many are isolated, alone at home at the end of the workday. How can these individuals maintain a feeling of connectedness in isolation?
Right. So the first thing is, why do you have to be isolated just because you're living alone? And why do you have to live alone? But I was trying to find out, just as I started this, is that if we're not willing to share our pain, we are always going to be isolated. And if we're not willing to share our joy, we're going to be isolated too, because nobody's going to want to be around us. You know, we have to have both. But anyway, so it means that the onus is more on you. Now, I have lived alone, and I did not like it. And I'm going to tell you, I felt isolated, and I hated it. And so I have tremendous compassion for people who feel isolated. But I also have tremendous compassion for people who live with others and the situations are abusive or horrible or painful or unresolved because they're not conscious or not getting counseling or not doing self-improvement. So all kinds of ways of being human are painful. Isolation, living alone, is only one of the many ways that human beings have pain.
But how do you maintain a feeling of connectedness in that?
Okay, good question. I'm getting to that.
Okay.
So if you happen to be one, but I'm trying to put it in context.
Okay.
The pain of isolation is not all that different from the pain of being crammed together with people you detest,
Okay,
right?
right.
So the first thing, see, what I'm trying to get to is how much of the isolation is real, how much of the isolation is caused by ourselves, how much of the isolation is a way that we're looking at things, right? So, and our behavior, like, do you feel a little less isolated by asking the question? I hope so, right?
Yeah.
Then you can look at specifics like, what is my situation? Why am I not in a club? Why is it, well, okay, at the end of a work day, is that all there is? It's like I go to work and then I come home and then I collapse in front of the TV and eat bonbons? Is there any other thing that I can do with my energy? There are so many things that are online. I mean, even groups that are online, like, so mutual support groups, like, emotional, whatever it is, Anonymous. Emotions Anonymous. So there's a way, even if you can't get out of the house, but which evidently this person can because they can leave the house to go to work. But whatever it is, it's what is your intention? What is it that you really want? Do you really want to break that isolation, or do you want to keep it? So you see, I've been walking around that question saying, well, look at this, look at this, look at it. But here it is right in the center. Do you want to end that isolation? If so, what can you do? How about trading in the pain of isolation for the pain of relating? How about getting some counseling? How about finding out what's stopping you from reaching out to other people? How about joining with others? How about being in groups? How about changing your whole lifestyle? How much are you bothered? How uncomfortable are you in your isolation? Going back to the shoe, right? Are you uncomfortable? Or are you just scared? As the other person asks, right? Are you just scared to change? So if the person loves being isolated, well, more power to them. They're probably lying to themselves, but whatever, okay. But if they don't, then they need to start reaching out for help to change. At some point, in order to change, we need enough pain, but we need enough hope. You don't have to be isolated. You may sometimes be lonely. You may have special circumstances that make it really difficult for you to get the support that you need. But are you doing everything you can to break that isolation? Are you doing everything you can to stay connected? Pick one person, one group, one something right now and commit to connecting to that person, that group, that something today, tomorrow. Start with that. And let me know how it goes.
Yes.
Well, it looks like, okay, I went over a little bit. So time is definitely up. So if you would like me to answer your question, either anonymous or with a name, please look at the post, and there's a link, and, send your questions to Granny Rocks, and I'll do another question and answer show. If not, I will answer some human question by taking on some other topic next week. Mm-hmm. And in the meantime, 15 minutes after the show, the live show tonight, is Granny's Kitchen, and in the post are instructions on how to get on, and you can talk to me and your peers and break your isolation, right? And do a video conference with us, and even if you can't set it up by your video conference thing, you can even call in and join us for Granny's Kitchen, where we talk about the topics that we addressed today, and you will not feel alone. So that's all I can say today. I enjoyed the show. I hope you did too.
Okay.
Bye-bye.